July, sometime between 1050 and 1100 CI, in what is now southern Illinois, a woman's body is laid to rest on exactly 20,000 marine shell beads arranged in the shape of a bird. Beside her, 50 other bodies, most of them young women, 4 of them missing their heads. The archaeological team from the University of Wisconsin, who excavated Mound 72 in 1967, found their hands positioned in ways that suggested they'd been buried alive. But here's what made lead archaeologist Melvin Fowler go silent. The entire mass grave was oriented toward a massive wooden pole structure visible from miles away, one that modern measurements confirm aligned perfectly with the equinox sunrise. What kind of civilization builds a city larger than London, then fills its ceremonial center with bodies positioned like compass points toward a celestial sex ritual? According to the Cahokia Mound State Historic Site Archaeological Records and the peer-reviewed work of Dr. Thomas Emerson at the Illinois State Archaeological Survey, what happened at Cahokia between 1050 and 1200 CE represents the most sophisticated pre-Columbian city north of Mexico. Today you'll discover how fertility rituals governed an empire of 40,000 people, why explicit sexual imagery was carved into every power structure in the city, and the disturbing reason modern archaeologists waited decades to publish what they found in the private ceremonial chambers. Every artifact I mention is cataloged. Every claim is sourced. Let's go. Cahokia didn't emerge slowly. Dendrochronology, the study of tree rings in recovered wooden posts, shows the city exploded into existence in a single generation starting around 1050 C. In less than 50 years, Mississippian peoples constructed over 120 earthen mounds, a wooden wall that required 20,000 logs, and Monk's Mound, a terraced pyramid covering 14 acres at its base and rising 10 stories high. That's more earth moved than the Great Pyramid of Giza. The labor force required, calculated by archaeologist Timothy Pocketet, would have needed 1,400 workers laboring full-time for a decade. But here's what they were building toward. At the city's central plaza, archaeologists found post holes indicating a structure they call woodhenge, a series of timber circles that functioned as both calendar and theater. On the spring and fall equinoxes, the sun rose directly over a specific red cedar post when viewed from the center. And at that center, excavations revealed something unexpected. A raised platform with stone carvings that researchers initially cataloged as abstract decorative elements in 1960s reports. It took until 1989, when bioarchaeologist George Milner published his analysis, for the scientific community to state plainly what they depicted: explicit human sexual acts, multiple figures in various positions of intercourse, and vulva imagery repeated in patterns of 4, a number sacred in Mississippian cosmology. The spring equinox ceremony wasn't abstract. It was performative, physical, and according to analysis of residue found on ceremonial pottery by chemist Dr. Andrew Cohn, involved the consumption of Ilex vomitoria, known as black drink, a caffeinated holly tea that causes both stimulation and ritual purging. Rising tension and the paper trail power at Cahokia wasn't inherited, it was performed. And the performance was sexual. When Dr. Sarah Bears analyzed the layout of Mound 72 for her 2017 study, she found something previous excavations had missed. The beaded burial, the one with the woman on 20,000 shells, was positioned at the exact center of a larger pattern. The 52 bodies in that mound weren't random casualties. Ages verified through dental analysis clustered between 15 and 25. Their health, confirmed by bone isotope studies, showed they'd eaten elite diets high in maize and protein. These weren't slaves or prisoners of war. They were candidates. Ethnohistoric accounts from later Mississippian descendants, the Natchez people, recorded by French explorer Antoine-Simon Lepage du Prat in 1758, describe a ritual called the Great Sun Ceremony, where young women competed for the honor of joining their ruler in death. The French were horrified. They called it barbarism. But LePage Duprat's recorded something else. The women volunteered. They danced for days. The one chosen was celebrated, not mourned. Now look back at Mound 72. The woman on the shell beads wasn't a victim in their eyes. The bird shape beneath her, confirmed by ornithologist analysis to represent a falcon, was the symbol of the Mississippian upper world, the realm of the sun and male power. But her positioning, arms crossed over a specific type of ceramic vessel found only in female burials, suggested she embodied both roles, receiver and generator of cosmic fertility. At the highest point of Cahokia's power, around 1100 CE, the ruler, whom archaeologists call the Great Sun, based on later Natchez terminology, lived atop Monk's Mound. Excavations of the summit structure in the 1960s revealed a building 105 feet long with interior post holes indicating separate chambers. One chamber contained thousands of fragments of a specific artifact type, ceramic figurines, almost all depicting women with exaggerated sexual characteristics, hands positioned on swollen bellies or between their legs. These weren't hidden. Spatial analysis shows they were displayed facing the plaza below, visible to the masses during ceremonies. And here's where it gets darker. Skeletal remains from mass graves near the plaza, analyzed in a 2015 study by bioarchaeologist Kristen Hedman, showed evidence of systematic violence, but only on young males. Crushed skulls, blunt force trauma, no defensive wounds, suggesting they didn't fight back. The most disturbing detail, their burials were casual, thrown into pits, unlike the carefully positioned female burials. Some were interred beneath the very posts that held up wood henge. The message was clear. Female bodies were sacred, necessary, cosmic. Male bodies, unless you were the Great Sun, were fuel. The crisis and human cost, by 1150 CE, Cahokia's population had swelled to an estimated 40,000 in the greater metro area, making it the largest city in North America until Philadelphia in the 1780s. That size created a problem: agricultural collapse. Soil studies published by gastrologist Cecil Schroeder in 2020 show rapid depletion of nutrients in the American bottom floodplain. The maize yields that fed the ritual calendar were failing. The ruling class responded by intensifying the rituals. We know this because the construction of new mounds accelerates precisely when the food supply contracts. More wood henges were built. More bodies were interred. A second mass burial pit, excavated in 2005, contained 39 women and young girls, this time with clear evidence of blunt force trauma to the base of the skull. Identical wounds, systematic execution. But the ceramics found with them tell a stranger story. Each body was accompanied by a specific type of vessel, a beaker with a hole deliberately punched through the bottom after firing. Ethnographic comparison with later southeastern ceremonial complexes suggests these were killed pots, ritually destroyed to release the spirit of the contents. Chemical residue analysis by Dr. Timothy Schilling found traces of morning glory seeds, specifically Ipomea species native to the region, which contain LSA, a compound similar to LSD. They weren't just killed. They were sent to the other world chemically altered during public ceremony, as thousands watched from the plaza. One burial stands apart. In Mound 34, excavated in 1998, archaeologists found a single woman, aged approximately 35 based on pelvic scarring, indicating multiple pregnancies, buried in a seated position facing west, the direction of death in Mississippian cosmology. Her mouth was propped open with a stone. Her hands were positioned around a ceramic bowl, still containing residue. Not black drink, not morning glory, but according to botanical analysis, crushed seeds from Datura stramonium, Jimson weed, a powerful deliriant that causes vivid hallucinations and often death. The excavation report, published quietly in a regional archaeology journal, notes the team found her body still bore traces of red ochre, a pigment used in fertility rituals, concentrated around the pelvis and mouth. The lead archaeologist, Dr. John Kelly, wrote in his notes, now archived at Washington University. We believe she may have been a ritual specialist who volunteered for terminal ceremonial role. The positioning suggests she was meant to speak to the underworld. We don't know her name. We don't know if she was coerced. But we know exactly how she died, and we know 10,000 people could see her do it from the plaza below. For decades, textbooks described Cahokia as a theocratic chiefdom with symbolic ceremonial practices. The sexuality was mentioned, if at all, as fertility symbolism. But in 2008, researchers gained access to storage archives at the Smithsonian containing materials excavated from Cahokia in the 1920s and never fully analyzed. Among them, a complete ceramic sculpture, 14 inches tall, depicting two figures in explicit sexual congress. The male figure wore a headdress indicating elite status. The female figure's hands were bound. The piece had been catalogued in 1927 as decorative pottery, abstract design. Someone had deliberately mislabeled it. The original excavation photograph, found in the same archive, showed the artifact exactly as discovered, placed in a pit directly beneath the central post of a wood-henge circle, surrounded by burned maize and the skeletal remains of 7 infants, none older than 6 months, based on fontanelle closure. Dr. Paucatat, who published these findings in 2013, wrote, "We're looking at state-mandated sexual ritual connected directly to sacrifice. This wasn't spirituality as we understand it. This was biological control at the cosmic level, and it worked for about a century." Isotope analysis of bones from early Cahokia burials shows people migrating from hundreds of miles away. They came to participate. They came to witness. They came, perhaps, to offer their daughters. But here's the archaeological twist nobody expected. It ended suddenly. By 1200 CE, maybe 50 years after peak population, Cahokia's ceremonial center was abandoned. Not gradually. The dating is precise. No new mounds after 1175. No new burials in the ritual positions after 1200. The plaza went silent. Why? Soil depletion is part of it. Climate data shows a drought in the late 1100s, but dozens of Mississippian sites survived those conditions. Cahokia, uniquely, collapsed. The theory that's gaining traction, proposed by Dr. Melissa Baltus in 2020, ritual exhaustion. The city had sacrificed so many young women, consumed so much of its own reproductive population in cosmic theater, that it literally ran out of people to maintain the belief system. The bodies buried in later pits show increasing signs of malnutrition and disease. The final ceremonial burial, dated to approximately 1195 CE, contained only 3 women, not 50, and they weren't positioned carefully. They were dumped. The power of sexual ritual had consumed the city that built its empire on it. The aftermath and modern legacy by 1300 CE, Cahokia was a ghost town. The Osage, Omaha, and other regional tribes have oral histories of the old ones who built the mounds, but no direct cultural continuity. The knowledge of what happened in those plazas died with the last generation who performed the rituals. The mounds themselves sat undisturbed until French explorers arrived in the 1600s. Monk's Mound got its name because French Trappist monks built a monastery on top of it in 1809, completely unaware they were living on top of a mass grave in a cosmic sex theater. The monastery burned down in 1813. The monks abandoned the site, reporting in their letters, now held at St. Louis Archdiocese archives, that they experienced unnatural visions and moral corruption on the mound. They blamed demons. Scientific excavation didn't begin until the 1920s, and even then, the full story was suppressed. Dr. Warren Whittrey, who excavated Woodhenge in 1961, told an interviewer in 1989, "We knew what we were finding. We knew what those figurines meant. But you have to understand, this was Illinois in the 1960s. You couldn't publish that the most important archaeological site in North America was a giant fertility cult. We'd have lost funding. It took until the 1990s for peer-reviewed journals to use the word sexual in connection with Cahokia. It took until 2008 for museums to display the explicit ceramics. And it took until 2019 for the Cahokia Mound State Historic Site to install an exhibit titled "The Body as Power" that actually shows visitors what archaeologists have known for decades. This was a civilization that made sex, specifically female sexuality and sacrifice, the engine of political and cosmic order. Today, Monk's Mound sits just 8 miles from downtown St. Louis. 6 million people live within an hour's drive of the site where young women once danced themselves to death under equinox sunrises. Fewer than 200,000 visit per year. It's not even the most popular historical site in Illinois. The lingering mystery, here's what keeps researchers awake. In 2016, ground-penetrating radar revealed there are at least 40 more burial mounds at Cahokia that have never been excavated, including several larger than Mound 72. The state of Illinois has classified them as protected sites. They will likely never be opened in our lifetimes, which means we know what happened in the plazas, on the mounds, under the equinox sun. But we don't know how many bodies are still down there, positioned in patterns we haven't decoded yet, holding artifacts that would rewrite the story again. The last entry in Melvin Fowler's excavation diary from Mound 72, dated October 1971, now digitized in the Illinois State Archives, reads, "Found another layer today. 20 feet down. Stopped counting beads at 50,000. The pattern is bigger than we thought. Much bigger." He died in 2004. The excavation was never completed. The sources are in the description. Fact check me. This is history that actually happened on American soil. We'll see you in the next one.